Welcome back to Writing and Reading the Declaration of Independence. In this talk we'll be setting the stage by looking at the 7 Years' War of 1756 to 1763. This was fought between France and Great Britain, although Spain got pulled into it, and oddly enough it was to seed the movement to American independence. This war may well have been inevitable. As you look at the map of North America, you can see that there was going to be conflict between Great Britain and France. The British colonists were sure to be moving westward as their number grew. It was already 2 million in the early 1700s, and they were going to bump into the French in the Ohio Valley. But what set off that war was an incident that, with hindsight, was curious indeed. In 1754, George Washington was 23 years old. He was in charge of a troop of about 45 not particularly well-trained Virginia militiamen, and they had been tasked with moving westward in search of French troops. He had a message to deliver. The King of Great Britain claimed those lands as his, but not incidentally the King of France claimed them as his. Washington was accompanied by Indians, just as were the French. Maneuvering through those trackless lands required the skills the Indians had. Washington's Indians reported that there were French troops ahead. During the night, Washington set up an ambush. That may not have been a great decision, but that's what he did. And opening fire at dawn wounded a dozen or so of the French. What happened next, though, was that Washington's Indians were completely out of his control and murdered the wounded French. Washington and his troops defended the remaining French, and the affair came to an end. This was not anything Washington was proud of, and it received little comment then or since. At any rate, the encounter was reported up the chain of command and grew out of control due to the law of unintended consequences, and led to a worldwide hostilities between the two great nations. Keeping this short, France lost heavily. Canada, the eastern area of Quebec, went to the British along with its French-speaking Catholic inhabitants, and Great Britain extended its trading and military influence into the Orient, and its navy was a dominant power with worldwide reach. France, though, harbored a grudge and would eventually support the American side of the revolution. Getting back to the 1760s, the war had cost the British a lot of money. The government was in debt. There's nothing new about war creating debt. And the government of Prime Minister Grenville was under pressure to recover money from the colonies to pay off the debt. The British government claimed that the colonists had benefited from the war. The colonists turned that around and claimed that the mother country had gained a lot more than that from the war, and that they, the colonists, had provided troops and supplies, etc. Things got a bit testy. The House of Commons passed the Stamp Tax Act, all 13,000 words of it, and we'll look at that in the next talk, although not without some members of the House vociferously opposing it. Colonial objections were intense and widespread. The cry of no taxation without representation was repeated endlessly. You can see it in newspapers over and over and over again, and was indeed a valid constitutional matter. The colonists had no representation in the House of Commons, and they were indeed being treated as second-class Englishmen. There was also violence, as quite a few customs agents were tarred and feathered and otherwise discouraged from carrying out their duties. Some didn't even get off the ship that brought them over. A Stamp Tax Act Congress was called, and although it did not accomplish very much in fact, it gave activists from all over the colonies a chance to meet face to face. And it gave the colonists a chance to learn that their concerted action could accomplish much. The Prime Minister was replaced, and the new one quickly decided that the Stamp Tax Act was a lost cause. It was revoked within just a few months. The net result was an all-around loss to the mother country.